Hello, viewers. Welcome to New York, New York. You just saw a little performance by Pandit Krishna Mohan Bhatt, one of India's most renowned sitar players. Pandit ji has come to New York to perform here, and we were fortunate enough to get him for an interview. Pandit ji, welcome to our show.
Hello, it's great to be here. Hello,
Uh,
everybody.
Tell us about your trip to New York and where you're performing.
Well, I have had a few concerts in California and in New York also. I have played earlier for the World Music Institute and the Knitting Factory. And in California, I was playing 3 or 4 concerts. And I come here because I have students here. And once a year I come for I try to come for a couple of months because they are very serious. And you just saw uh, KV playing with me. ये बहुत पुराना composition है. So my father taught this to me a long time ago.
Well, tell us how long you've been playing. Why did you pick the sitar in particular?
Uh-huh. Um, I was sort of born into it. My family, I come from a musical family. My father played sitar also. He taught for the university for 30, 35 years, and my grandparents were singers. So I was sort of, I bred
So you
through,
inherited.
inherited it. It's
It
like
was in your
inherent,
genes.
is right, exactly. And almost everybody, my father had several brothers, and they were all musicians, and so heard it all the time since I was a child, and I fooled around with different instruments as a young boy. I played tabla for many years and other Indian instruments, santoor, and but then somehow I found or I felt very close to sitar, and I realized that it was a complete instrument, very versatile, and also it could imitate the voice, uh, very singing,
The
which
human
is
voice.
human voice, and very well, and that is the basis of Indian classical music. When we learn, we learn the singing compositions, and then we try to play the same thing on the sitar.
Uh,
So.
why don't you explain the sitar to us? Because a lot of our viewers, this might be a new instrument. They haven't probably seen it before.
Okay. Well, I don't know if you can see. I will hold it with me, and you can see better. This sitar. This is the sitar, which is India's most popular string instruments. And I think the present form of sitar is sitar has been in existence for maybe 300 years. You know, when Mughal and Rajput kings were there, and in the north. Uh, India, which is called the Hindustani system of music, it has been a popular instrument, and it went through. It's the ancestor of this instrument is VEENA, old VEENA that goes back to Vedic times, and there have been some modifications according to needs of the time and music as it changed. The music, as you know, uh, there are different forms of music were created during the Mughal rules and Rajput, all the kings, and in that time this was patronized by all those people. So, like for instance, Dhrupad is the oldest singing style. So Khayal became popular during Muhammad Shah Rangile time in 17th, 18th century, and Dhrupad also went along. So Thumri, for instance, and then all these light classical forms of music. So instruments also went through changes. But sitar is very interesting because we have this, as you see this. Well, let me tell you. it has lot of sympathetic strings along the side here. They
Mhm.
resonate, therefore echoes for resonate.
Okay.
And we tune them to the raga or particular mode we are playing, so
Okay.
they resonate. And it's made often made from teak wood.
Okay.
And the sound belly is a pumpkin gourd which is dried and cut into half, and then they put a thin wood sound cover it here.
You mean this is an actual pumpkin gourd?
This, you see?
Oh, that is
Yeah,
interesting. I had no
and
clue.
it's very light, so that you get this sound because of this, and then it has all these frets that are
Right.
curved, and this enables us to get several notes from one fret.
Okay.
Okay, and they are metal, and there's a lot of ornate carving and this and it's teak,
Right.
and it has six playing strings,
Right.
and then sympathetic strings, which are right now I'm tuned to the rag that we were playing earlier,
Right.
and
Oh,
you
that's
have to grow
beautiful.
a little
Your little
nail
finger,
here,
the finger,
and it
finger
goes
finger.
under, and
Oh.
so that's how the scales are played. So we tune it mostly. It's very close to guitar, but most of the melody or notes are on one string, and the other ones are for resonance and percussive effect. You know, so like I will play you a natural scale, which is played like, and then lower octave. So that's how the other strings are used, and these are used for strumming and also for rhythm. For instance, so that's how it's played, and we play. The plectrum is made out of a steel wire,
Okay.
and they say that dental wire is the
Oh,
strongest.
really?
So
Is this the kind they put in the teeth?
I don't know. I don't know. In old times, maybe, but
Okay.
also the strings are steel and copper and bronze. You have to know that in the north, which was frequently um, invaded
By the
by
Muslims
Muslims, and
in the last
so
1,000 years.
a lot of the music went through changes. Basically, in South Indian music, we also have ragas and talas, but
Right.
instruments are a little different.
Right.
They use veena, and in the north we use sitar.
Right.
They also, violin is a big, it's like a
Right.
part of Indian music
South Indian
now,
music.
and veena and mridangam, for instance,
Right.
for the rhythm they use mridangam, and we use pakhavaj,
Right.
which also is associated with Drupad singing. One system has had a lot more room for creativity and changes,
Right.
whereas composed, when you have a composed form of music,
Right.
you cannot make too many changes.
So, Southern Indian music is
So
more
it's
set.
more set, and more. There have been composers like Tyagaraja, and
Right.
they made these kritis, and there is a uh, whole bunch of music that is related to dance forms.
Right.
Kathakali
Right.
and Bharatnatyam,
Bharatnatyam.
and
Right.
so that's what actually exactly what makes North Indian music different and interesting is that we went into the whole concept of, for instance, rasa, the
Right.
concept of rasa of emotions,
Right.
expressing emotions through the music.
Right.
The karuna rasa, the pathos and love and
Right.
erotic and
Right.
romantic and devotional.
The nine
So
rasas.
the
That's the
right,
Navrasa.
Navrasa
Right.
theory, Navrasa concept, and another thing which only which differs from South Indian classical music is the time theory.
Okay.
It's very much North Indian somehow. North Indian Hindustani system is very much related to nature,
Right.
nature and human beings.
Seasons also.
Seasons, reasons,
Right.
and we have ragas for morning. We have ragas for 24 hours, and we
Right.
divide the cycle in six prahar. We call it.
Right, the six
So
times of the day,
right.
the six different periods of the day.
So that's a very deep part of this music.
Okay.
And as you might notice in a concert, that usually musicians will play an alap, which is the invocation or the introduction to the rag,
Right.
and which is very, very deep and meditative. And then when you play with the drummers, you have a lot of excitement and
Right.
rather rhythmic variations.
Right.
So that is, I mean, in one piece, you have many moods. You can feel
Right.
like it's jazz. It's closer to
Right.
jazz because of the improvisation.
Tell us about the jazz musicians you've played with, since you said Indian music is so similar to jazz.
Yes, I have done not a whole lot, but I used to, in California, I have worked with some people. And I think one time I played with Pharrell Sanders, sax, and then I'm working with a young saxophone player from the Bay Area, from San Francisco area, George Brooks. He's a wonderful, excellent, very talented musician, and he's been to India, and I have known him off and on for many years, and we have done some collaborative work. We have also done 2 CDs, and on which Mr. Zakir Hussain is playing. He's the most renowned tabla player from India, and I consider him more like a renowned, full, versatile musician rather than just limiting him to only drumming, because he's incredible musician, and he has done so much for the country and for the music, as everybody knows him. So we have done some recordings together. I have worked with American composer. I have been working with Terry Riley, who is also a very well-known composer. We have done many tours together, and three of us have also done tour together and recordings together. And I recorded with him. We were traveling in Europe. He plays. I mean, he's a fantastic keyboard player. I'm talking about Terry Riley, that I work with sometimes. And he's also very well versed in Indian music, because he had a teacher in a singer, very famous, well-known musician from India, who lived in New York actually for many years, and his name was Pandit. I also spent time with him. Wonderful man. He just unfortunately passed away a few years ago. He was in his 70s, and his uh, people might know Lamont Young, Terry Riley were all his students, and Lamont Young also lives here. So I mean, in different contexts, I have played with a lot of different musicians. But in order to have a good work, you have to not you have to work on it. You cannot just change so many. So I will consider very good if, like, you work with few musicians, and over the years your work gets better and better. And I have also worked with Kronos String Quartet, and I'm planning to write a piece for them. Uh, and so in when you travel a lot, when you meet other musicians, you understand music in a different way. Uh, that's why I was trying to say earlier that jazz is closer to Indian classical music, because in some ways the structures, very rigid structures are there. You have to follow that framework of the same way ragas and talas. And another thing is that there is a lot of room for improvisation in jazz. Also, if you're a good musician and you have to maintain the structure, and in same way, sort of spontaneous improvisations are there, but always within the structure. So another complex and interesting thing is the rhythms in Indian classical music, because mostly in a Western sense, people understand 4/4, for instance, or 3/3, 1/2/3, 1/2/3, or 1/2/3/4, 1/2/3/4. In, I mean, in the more contemporary, over the last 10, 15 years, musicians have borrowed ideas from all kinds of cultures and music, and new forms of musics are created, are being created. Also, there has been a lot of fusion
Right.
with the musicians,
In the last few years.
African, Indonesian,
Right.
Indian, Chinese, Japanese, and African music is very strong. The roots of African music is just like in India, as where I come from, Jaipur, Rajasthan. Jaipur is in the northwest. It's mostly desert, and there have been strong traditions of folk music and tribal music, and the gypsies originated there. So I mean, it covers like a whole big gamut of musical styles, instruments, rhythms, and melodies. So the rhythms, for instance, we have rhythm cycles for 7. We played composition in 7. We grew up with, 7 is very easy, or complex rhythms like 13, play a piece in 13, or 14 beat rhythm cycle.
Right.
So this kind of, um, you know, dialogues and language of music is there. And it is so interesting to, when when you travel or you get together with and you share your musical experience, your musical background, how you can converse with African musicians or Indian and Western classical
Right.
musicians and jazz musicians. So
Right.
this is very interesting. Uh, and that's, sitar is kind of, you know, closer. You might have seen kora,
Right.
African instrument, but
Right.
one is, you know, the systems are different. So in Indian music or North Indian music, when you play, one is a composer, conductor, and performer at the
Right.
same time. So that makes it very lively. It's a it's a sort of like communication between the musicians, and they when we play with, usually we play with tabla player and or singers and play together, so that there's a we everybody understand the structure of the music. And many times I do concert, I have never played with the drummer, and for the first time we get together and do the whole concert, so there's basic understanding of the system.
Right.
And another interesting thing is that in Indian music we don't have notation system. As you,
Oh,
we
right.
just like
Right.
everything. It depends on your how imaginative you are, how innovative you are. We don't follow sheet of music, and
Right.
it has been oral tradition.
Right.
Like you have
That's
to.
very different.
That's very different, and that, that makes a very special bond between students and teachers.
Right.
You almost become like a family, and
Right.
you are accepted in the house, and then you learn this way. And usually a teacher will sing, and you are supposed to play, and then you learn the technique and things like that. So we don't have any written music, and it's all Guru Mukhi Vidya, as we say, from
Right.
the mouth of the
The,
teacher. Gharana, basically, ghar means a house. So it's like a tradition of the house or home or particular person who made the music so popular, and also um, sort of created a form. Some great musicians in the past, like great Ustad Amir Khan Sahab, Bade Ghulam Ali Khan, and also in our own time, Ali Akbar Khan Sahib, Pandit Ravi Shankar ji, they are my teachers,
gurus.
gurus. So they their music became so strong that they almost started a school. Everybody
Right.
follows them. They influence hundreds of musicians. So
Right.
so that's what gharana is. And another part, especially in vocal, there were all these Mughal courts, Rajput courts. They had court musicians, house musicians.
Right.
And during, like 30, 40 years of the time, people invited from the other chords, other musicians, and they exchanged. So all these styles were developing, and that's another way of naming a gharana, like Jaipur gharana, whatever happened in Jaipur, Lucknow gharana, Banaras, Sham Chaurasia gharana, whole bunch of, you know, as well singing as well as tabla playing, and in instrumental music is also to some extent it's true. So that's how all the gharana concept of gharana started, and the guru shishya tradition is very strong because um, fortunately I had music in my family, but some people who have studied music, they had to go through very difficult pursuing and cooing the teachers to teach them,
To accept them
to
into the
accept them
gharana,
in the
to
gharana,
think they're good enough to be
and
accepted.
I mean, these are all history and theory, and everything is very interesting. But I'll tell you an interesting story. In old times, the ustads, and they valued it so much that, even in today's time, I regard it very respect. I mean, I have a lot of respect, and I will die. It's like my life. I have traveled sometimes. Just I heard that somebody has a little piece of composition that I had to get, and I traveled. I spent a lot of money just to get a 5-minute piece of music. So I think people who are serious or serious musicians, they all, whether it's jazz or Indian music or African music, they feel the same way, and it's just totally enriches your life and becomes your life. And so we were talking about the tradition, the guru,
The guru
that's how
shishya, the
this
student
started.
teacher
So I
relationship.
was telling you a story that in old times when people got married, among musicians or families, one family will offer like 500 compositions as a dowry.
Oh, that's
So isn't that interesting?
Yeah, I
So
never heard
if
of
I
that.
was to marry somebody who I admired,
Right,
and especially if they were from a very famous family,
right.
I will inherit. They will promise to teach or give me all these 200 new compositions,
Oh,
and that will
okay.
add on to the wealth of already existing knowledge that people have, or I know. So this kind of stories always are
Yeah.
very fascinating.
Yeah, that's interesting to think of music as a part of dowry. I mean,
Yes.
that it has, monetary value.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
fascinating.
More than that. I mean, sometimes when our ustads or teachers talk about, it's like one composition is worth 1 million or
Okay.
something, because you learn something beautiful and that really has a lot of feeling, and you can teach it to other people. Other
Right.
people carry it on. That's how you
Right.
carry on a tradition,
Right.
and a school chain of thoughts and music, and you impart it to your students, and then they carry it on, or in the families.
Right.
But it's a very difficult thing to do, because in present day life it's very hard to keep the traditions going, and they are dying away sometimes. And but there are always few of us and other musicians, and I mean there are lots of them who sort of are trying to keep it alive.
Right.
And it is true with other craft and arts, traditional arts and crafts of India. So, that's an interesting part. Music, in general, I think, creates devotion and love. I mean, you naturally feel, you can be very mad and resentful, and then you hear something nice, you look like a nice painting or poetry.
Right.
It brings out deep emotions in you and
Right.
bring people closer, people
Right.
of the world closer.
Right.
They say that those who are doing arts or music, they are more in touch, directly in touch with the Supreme Being. Well, folks, that was Pandit Krishna Mohan Bhatt, renowned sitar player, and I hope you enjoyed the show as much as I did. And we'll see you again next week, same day, same time. Until then, be happy.